Welcome to Bucs Insider, presented by Verizon. Casey Phillips here with senior writer and editor Scott Smith, and we have a playoff show to talk about. It is a great day to be a Bucs fan. Clinched the NFC South for the third year in a row, which is the first time in franchise history. It has been a great few years here to have these back-to-back-to-back titles, and now, of course, most importantly, that means they're going to the playoffs. So tell me just kind of your takeaways from this last game. Even though it may not have been the prettiest win, it got done what you needed to get done.
Yeah, you're echoing Baker there in the press conference after the game, saying it was an ugly win. You know, it's an ugly win if you don't like defense. But I saw some things that were pretty spectacular on defense. Antoine Winfield, for the most part, and we'll obviously be talking about him. But the defense really stepped up. And, of course, so did the kicker, and we'll also be talking about him. But you know, Baker was obviously banged up. He had the ribs to start. Then he injured an ankle pretty early in the game, so he's playing through all that. Carolina has a nice defense, a good defensive front, and things really weren't clicking a lot on offense. But they found a way to win, and that's what's important. And the last 2 weeks on offense haven't been great, and Tristan Wirfs said something about that afterwards in the locker room, and his leadership is really starting to show. But before that, the Bucs offense had really started to click. And I think that this team is confident that despite the last 2 weeks, they can get back to that. And they may need to, because Philly is a high-scoring team, and so you may have to score a bunch to keep up.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting. And so you brought up Antoine Winfield Jr. It's impossible not to bring him up after every game and all the things that happen with the Buccaneers. And, God, he just put on a show this week. It was splash plays and it was impact plays. And I think I can make a case for him just 2 plays individually saving 10 points.
Exactly.
And I'm like, what else do you want in a defensive player than that? Where single-handedly, essentially, they are saving points.
Yeah, it's, you know, he was named the NFC Special Teams Player of the Week. This play is incredible. He was 23 yards away from that player when the ball was caught, DJ Chark.
Wow.
I did a little next-gen dig into that, and he ran the fastest of any player on the field on that play, and he covered the most ground of any player on the field. And, of course, just poking that out, and you think, well, is that just an instinct? Is that just an accident? He described that play and said he saw that Chark was starting to hold the ball out in front of him. He's like, I think he's going to try to extend that over the goal line, and then I'll try to poke it out. Okay, I just said all that. Probably the time it took me to say all that probably is longer than the time it took for that whole thought to happen, to be in his head and then process it and do it. I mean, there's athleticism is important, but there's something to be said about a guy who just has unbelievable instincts like that.
That really was incredible. And yeah, the look at his numbers. As
this
you
is
did such a great job of last week going on the rant about his numbers in the Pro Bowl and everything. Right. He even upped all of the numbers. Basically, in this game, he ended up with another sack and another forced fumble and all the things. So, yep, just continuing to be incredible.
First in 3 categories there among all safeties, second in hits, second in total takeaways, because that's interceptions and fumble recoveries. Passes defensed. I mean, he's making plays in the backfield, he's making plays in the back end. It's what hasn't the guy done? We've already seen the results of the Pro Bowl, and like you said, I've already done my rant on that one. Won't do it again. But, you know, all Associated Press, all pros still to come. Hopefully there's some vindication there. And
we saw that I think he broke the record for tackles by a DB in franchise history, which is pretty incredible. And I know also you brought up Baker, and that this was a game that was very dominated by the defense. And it was so good to have that, and that's what you want going into the playoffs, is knowing that if one side of the ball is struggling for whatever reason, you have people to step up in there. But Baker, I have to say that even though the offense maybe didn't produce a ton, I just have so much respect for him gritting out that game, and I know the rest of the team does too. He came in already beat up, then got even more banged up during the game with the ankle, and then we see him running for this gutsy third down play. I just think that he shows that no matter what, he's going to try to make it happen, in even if it's in an unconventional way.
Yeah, even I can tell you from experience up in the press box, everybody around me was the same reaction. When he ran, you're like, oh, no.
Yeah, no.
Because you know he's got the injuries and you don't want him to do it, but then you know he's just going to do it. And I think in addition to the one I think you're referring to, which was like a 7-yard scramble on 3rd and 6 after he'd hurt his ankle, he had another play. It was 3rd and 1. It was a fake handoff to Rashad, and then he was supposed to throw it out to, I think, Cade Otton out to the right, just a real quick pass in the flat, but he cocked his arm and he saw a defender there and realized if he throws this, it might be a pick. So what does he do? He just immediately tucks it and just barrels right into the line, right into Derek Brown, one of the biggest and best defensive linemen in the league, and just bashes into him to get the first down. I mean, that was one where I was like, don't do that. But he did it, got the first down, and, he didn't have the most productive game passing, obviously, but if you look at a season as a whole, he set career highs in yards. He had more than 4,000 yards. He had 28 touchdowns. Both of those were career highs for him. He only had 10 interceptions, and he is one of 2 quarterbacks in Bucs history to finish the season with 4,000 yards, at least 25 touchdown passes, and 10 or fewer interceptions. The other one's the GOAT. So, I mean,
not too shabby.
It's good company to be in.
Good company to be in for sure. And like we said, if your offense is going to struggle and you have some injuries, you need your defense to have your back. It also helps to have a kicker that has your back, and that this can become a pretty potent offensive weapon, particularly when you have a guy like Chase McLaughlin.
Yes, and I'm going to preface all this the same way I did on Jeff and I's podcast, The Salty Dogs. Shameless plug. I'm talking about Chase McLaughlin, the Bucs kicker for the 2023 regular season. I'm talking about his regular season. It's over. There is no possible jinx here.
Right.
It's done. It's in the books.
Yeah, it is a very good thing to preface it with so nobody can be upset.
This is the regular season. It's over.
Because we aren't superstitious, but we're a little stitious.
That's good. Chase made his last 18 field goals in the regular season, finished 29 of 31. 93.5% is the best field goal percentage in team history. He made 7 of 8 from beyond 50 yards, including 5 of 5 from 55 or longer. You saw one of them there in that game. That's not just the most in a season. That's the most 55-plus yarders a Bucs kicker has ever made in their career. Connor Barth was good. He was here for 5 years, and he did it 3 times. Chase did it 5 times in one season and didn't miss. His only 2 misses, unsuccessful kicks this year, were both blocked.
Yeah.
So it's hard to say whether those were his fault or not. And he made all of his extra point attempts. So Pro Football Focus named him their first-team All-Pro kicker. I think it's because he basically didn't miss all year except those 2 blocks, and he had the long distance.
What else can you ask for? It's incredible.
Yeah, and a guy at work was pointing out, one thing about him is he tends to hit him right down the middle.
Mm-hmm. It's not sneaking in.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, you want the kicker to get it through one way or another.
Mm-hmm.
If it goes in 1 yard past the post, then fine. But wouldn't you want a guy who generally hits it down the middle, because those are more often going to go in?
Yeah, I completely agree. And then also another bright spot from this last game, Yaya Diaby. I just think we can't talk about him enough either, to see how he's come on and progressed and grown as a rookie, and just the excitement I feel like he and Kalijah both are causing about the future of this defense with these young guys. But Yaya, his combination of strength and speed is incredible. And so when you have that much athleticism, the more you start understanding the game plan and the game, it's only up from here.
This is a great highlight package we're watching here. I love this. And it doesn't even take into account the fact that the coaches consider him the best run stopper of their edge rushers, and that's why they drafted him for the most part. And that's why he was available in the 3rd round, because he wasn't necessarily considered one of the top 2 or 3 edge rushers. But he had 7.5 sacks. That's I think it's 3rd in the league among rookies, or tied for 2nd, and it's tied for the 2nd most ever by a Bucs rookie with Adrian Claiborne, who was a 1st-round pick. Just to find this in the 3rd round is just such an enormous hit by our player personnel department that I'm sure they're just absolutely thrilled by that one.
As they should be. And of course, someone we know they also are very thrilled. They drafted Tristan Wirfs, who not only did we ask him to change positions and play one of the most important and hardest parts of the offense after doing so well at another spot, he has conquered that, but he's also, I don't know if he was asked or just knew he needed to do this, has stepped up in a leadership role. You mentioned earlier his speech after the game to the team, and it's just been thing after thing like that this year, where you start to see him take on the not just do as I do, but also the vocal leadership role for the team both.
Yeah, and I think that's an exciting development for the Buccaneers. And of course, he became a team captain for the first time this year, and it seems like he's taking that seriously. And what he was vocalizing to the team afterwards, he said, great win, everybody celebrate, this is awesome, but also, hey, we the offense, we need to step it up. The last 2 games have not been great for us, and going forward, we got it. We can't leave it all on the defense.
Yep, for sure. And so we talked about this is the 3rd straight NFC South title, first time in team history. So now also 4 seasons in a row of playoffs, and it is so crazy to realize how many people on this team only know the playoffs. When you
like
think
an
about
Antoine
that,
Winfield.
Yes, I think about that with Tristan and Antoine, that they came in that year. Now we're talking about them being these veteran leaders on the team, and man, these guys, so many people on this roster only know the playoffs, which is pretty incredible.
Levante said he tells his story to the rookies to scare them, to realize this is what could happen. You might wait 8 years.
And to know to appreciate this too.
That's it.
Yeah.
Because you wonder if, like Antoine or Tristan or anybody drafted in 2020, if they start to take it, I don't think they do, but if you start to take it for granted, like this is going to happen every year, so whatever. This doesn't necessarily come along all the time, and Levante's certainly the one who knows that after 8 years without the playoffs, and didn't know when Bruce Arians and then Todd Bowles got here that everything was going to change, and that he could have gone his whole career without going to the playoffs, and he's well aware of that, so he definitely savors it. But speaking of Todd Bowles, he's the first Bucs head coach to lead his team to a division title in each of his first 2 years. So
it's amazing.
It's been a nice transition
That's
in
a
that
big
regard.
Deal.
Yeah.
And I think that we still have not appreciated the fact that they have so much dead cap money.
Yeah.
And have still been able to have a winning record and make it to the playoffs. I think that's an incredible thing to keep in mind of how few teams are able to make the playoffs at this. And I think it's the Bucs had the most dead cap money in the league.
It's something like that.
And made the playoffs.
It's like they had one hand tied behind their back but lasted through 12 rounds of a boxing match. I mean, they did it. They made it. And they're one of only 3 teams in the NFL currently that have been in the playoffs each of the last 4 years, along with Kansas City and Buffalo. And to do that with the restrictions that they had, and to do so, you had to hit on things like Yaya Diaby and Christian Izzian, and that's how you get it done. And it's not easy to do.
And so, speaking of not easy to do, advance in the playoffs.
Right.
That's, it helps. You have a home game, which is a huge deal and why you want to win the division. You have the Eagles coming in here, rematch. Maybe that helps. You have some knowledge of what didn't work the first time, can make those adjustments, have that film. When you look at these two teams, what are the things that stand out about the keys for this matchup? And both teams seem pretty different than the first time around.
Yeah, that was week 3, and it was a Monday night game, and we're not going to sugarcoat it. The Eagles dominated that game. Mainly, the difference was, and a couple of players talked about this yesterday, the difference in the run games. We allowed 201 rushing yards to the Eagles and only got 41 rushing yards. I mean, that there was the gulf that gave Philadelphia such a big advantage in that game. And the Bucs run game isn't one of the best in the league now, but it's definitely better. And you saw that in what they call a 4-minute drill, the last 6 minutes of the game in Carolina, salting that game away by running successfully 6, 7, 8 times on the last drive when the defense knew you were going to run the ball. To be able to succeed in that situation means you have found some answers in the running game. And it's been a little bit hit or miss, but in the second half of the season, it's definitely been better. And the Bucs run defense is actually ranked 5th in the league. So they know it's a challenge because Philadelphia has such a great offensive line. Again, this year, 3 Pro Bowlers from that line. So it's going to be a battle in the trenches on both sides. The Eagles defense didn't, I keep saying Phillies. The Eagles defense didn't have as many sacks as when they went nuts last year, but they still have a very talented defensive front led by Hassan Reddick. So as Lavonte David was saying yesterday, it's really right there on both sides of the ball where this game is probably going to be won.
It's going to be an interesting matchup for sure.
It is interesting also because the Eagles and the Bucs are the Bucs' most common playoff opponent in their history, and it's not even close.
Wow. This
will be the 6th time these two teams have played. Washington is next with 3. So I don't know why it keeps coming up Philadelphia, but if you look at this, the very first playoff game in team history was the top one there in '79. Bucs won that one. Obviously, you can remember that in 2000, 2001, those seasons ended very disappointingly with lopsided losses in wildcard games in Philly, and that's why the game in 2002, the NFC Championship game, was such a big deal because it was in Philly. It was the last game in the Veterans Stadium. It was the Rondé Barber play. And then 2 years ago, a more current iteration, because Jalen Hurts was early in his starting career, but he was starting for that team, and the Bucs really handled that game in the wild card round, going up 31-0 at one point. So, and really handling Jalen Hurts well, but Jalen Hurts has definitely advanced since then. So it's a big question mark, as we show graphically there, what's going to happen this time around.
All right, well, that is going to do it for us on this edition of Bucs Insider. We hope everyone enjoys that game. We hope to see a lot of you out here at Raymond James Stadium, or at least following along on Buccaneers.com, and we'll see you next week.